I'm not. I'm actually called the Film Watcher. Hi, nice to meet you. Anyway, so I watched Batman the Animated Series over the course of the past couple months leading up to the release of The Batman next week. I am very, very excited for this movie. It looks really, really awesome. And over the past 2 months, I have immersed myself in Batman-ness by watching the animated show, reading a couple comics that I hadn't read yet, such as Year One, and revising my Batman fan casting list about like a lot of times to the point where about a lot of what I said in my initial Batman recasting videos from like last summer is now untrue and incorrect. So, yeah, I might have to update that at some point. Anyway, today I, the Film Watcher, shall be giving y'all my top 10 villains from Batman the Animated Series with numerous honorable mentions. And these are only villains from the animated show, including the new animated adventure thing that was technically season 4 of the animated series. I don't. It's one thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm not incorporating any other versions into my placement on here. It's just from that show. So let's get started. At number 10, wait, not number 10. Honorable mentions. Okay, so there were some like one villains that got like one episode or maybe 2 episodes to be in the spotlight. Baby Doll, her initial episode was pretty depressing and very, very good. There was a great voice performance from Allison LaPlaca, who voiced Baby Doll. She was very good. The character, I don't know if she's from the comics. I don't think so, but she was a very cool character, regardless. The Sewer King. This was a dark episode, so I knew there was going to be a character called the Sewer King at one point, and I thought it was going to be like a stupid villain because his name was the Sewer King. But he was actually pretty terrifying for a couple of reasons. One, they never called him the Sewer King, which is like an immediate plus. And for two, he was never he like his main thing was that he kidnapped a bunch of small children, forced them never to speak, and forced them to be his slaves in the sewers. It was a really messed up episode, and it was. I'm surprised that it actually was able to be on the air for like a cartoon that was marketed towards kids. But it was a very good episode, and he was a really creepy villain. There's also the Phantasm from Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is part of this series, even though it's not actually an episode. It's part of the series, so it counts. The Phantasm is a cool villain, bit of a predictable twist at the end of that movie, but it's not a huge issue really. I don't know, but yeah. There was also Lockup, who was like the security chief at Arkham, who like was vigilante-esque, or sort of to become like a vigilante, and he just kind of went crazy. And it was a very cool episode, very cool villain. And then some other ones that were featured throughout the series. Man Bat, we got a couple episodes with him, and he was very cool. Rupert Thorne, the mob boss from the show, that's basically an amalgam of Carmine Falcone and Sal Maroni, from a couple different mob bosses from stuff like The Long Halloween and that sort of thing. And he was a solid villain. Scarecrow, he was fine. I mean, it wasn't a bad version of well, in the first episode, it was a really bad version of Scarecrow because he looked like a toothpick. He seriously looked like a Q-tip with arms and legs and Scarecrow stuff applied to him. It did not look very good. It got a little bit better, and he was fine, I guess. Riddler is also here, honorable mention. He didn't really get a ton to do. He did get some pretty cool episodes. I'm surprised that the Riddler wasn't a bigger villain in this series because he's like a main Batman villain, but he was good. Ventriloquist and Scarface, they got some very cool episodes, and the dynamic between the two was just really terrifying. Especially there was this one episode of season 4 that was very very cool that I enjoyed, and I think that is it. And all for one, Mad Hatter. He was an interesting villain. I think his first episode was great and had him as like if I'd been just going off that first episode, it still would have been an honorable mention because he only got in one episode. But and there were like other episodes throughout the series where he got to be very cool, but it was kind of just like a few appearances. Like he never really got like all his appearances right, especially in season 4 when they did a lot of redesigns for the characters, and he was by far my least favorite. Just I don't even know what they were going with. It's disgusting. I don't understand what was going on when they redesigned him. Like what I don't like it. I don't love his original design either, but the redesign is just so bad. Anyway, so let's get to the actual number 10, and it is Clayface or Matt Hagen. Now, his origin episode was split into 2 parts, and it was a really, really good episode because it told the story of the actor Matt Hagen, who had this thing where he had like a facial deformity that he couldn't keep up like his normal face. Like it kept morphing back into this like distorted clay-esque features that made it look like his face was melted or something. And he was trying to solve this issue, and he just ended up making it worse and worse for himself as he just morphed into this clay beast. And it's honestly a really really solid episode. Like I didn't expect to actually feel bad for Clayface, but I did. And then the subsequent appearances he got throughout the series, he got one where he was presumed dead, but then he wasn't, because whoever dies on this show, or in really many cartoons, really, I don't know. But that episode was good. The episode he got in season 4, where it was like he created this little girl out of a part of his body, and then Tim Drake basically fell in love with her. And it was a pretty sad episode when she just like morphed back into him. So he got some very cool episodes here. On top of that, he was voiced by Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman rocks. His design is truly, truly awesome. Like, this is probably my favorite Clayface design ever. Like, a lot of the times I like to look up fan art of Batman villains, and some of the ones that I found of Clayface had like faces inside of him, and it was weird, man. It was weird, but he was a very very cool antagonist in this series, and he looked just awesome. Number 9 is the Penguin. Now the one issue, well, okay, this wasn't like, this version of the Penguin didn't really push any boundaries in terms of what you could do with the character. It didn't do anything that new or that unexpected. Like, it didn't make him a distorted sewer man who lived with penguins and kidnapped babies like in Batman Returns. It didn't give him like a full extended origin story like in Gotham. But you know what? The Penguin doesn't need to be deeply complex or layered or anything like that. He was just fun. He was a fun villain. I think the design was very cool, except in season 4. That was when they did the redesign, and it looks so weird. I don't like it. But in his normal appearances, he got some very cool episodes. To just be this fun, lunatic that was obsessed with birds and umbrellas. Like they go pretty goofy with the bird gimmick to the point where like in the episode Almost Got Him, pretty much everybody makes fun of it when he lures Batman to his aviary of doom. And he was just this classy yet somehow volatile person, and he was a very very enjoyable version of the Penguin. Not the best, like again, Gotham is easily best version of the Penguin I've ever seen, and even Danny DeVito is probably I prefer him, but this was still a very cool version of the Penguin. He had a very cool voice too. Number 8 is Raish and Talia al Ghul. They like I mean they didn't really appear in any episodes independent of the other, so I just included them together. And before I watched this series, I was kind of an ant on Ra's al Ghul. I pronounce it Raz. The show pronounces it Raish, but whatever. Because I just didn't. I never really got what his scheme was. And on top of that, the only good version I'd ever seen of him had been Liam Neeson in Batman Begins. And that's. I don't know. I mean, it was a good version, but for one, he was white and not Arabic. For two, I don't know. I never really got into Ra's al Ghul as a character, as in from like the comic books and stuff. I just never really got into him. And then the version in Gotham just made it all the worse because he was so bad. He was so bad. But this version of Ra's al Ghul not only is absolutely terrifying, but is also like a character whose plan actually makes sense. Like he's using this environmental stuff to do all his workings. I don't remember it exactly, but it's interesting with like his plan. I love his relationship with Batman, how he always calls him detective. That's awesome. And then you got Talia as well, and her relationship with Batman was interesting. Her relationship with her father was interesting. Like the constant like back and forth between is she a good guy, is she a bad guy? That was cool because every time you thought she was like on Batman's side, she went to betray him. And yeah, but I don't know. And they got some very, very cool, like, mystical stuff to do in each of their episodes. And there were plenty of episodes with the two of them. And they just made for a very, very cool and intimidating duo. So, good job on this one. Easily the best version of Ra's al Ghul, in my opinion, at least. Number 7 is Mr. Freeze. Oh, boy. So, Mr. Freeze was basically reinvented by this series because before he was just kind of a goofy gimmick antagonist whose only thing to do was that he was a guy who shot ice out of a ice gun thing. And really the only way to make him cool or interesting at all is if you got somebody cool to play him, which they did in the 60s show in one episode, or maybe a couple episodes in George Sanderson. He played Mr. Freeze in Batman 66. But really he wasn't that good of a character up till this point. But then they gave him this super tragic origin story about how he was trying to save his wife, but then his superiors stopped him from doing that, so he just kind of went crazy. He gave himself this condition where he had to be in this suit to survive. Not to mention, he was this emotionless, literally cold man who was just shut off from the rest of the world. Like, in the episode Heart of Ice, that is a dark, dark episode, because he is a terrifying character, a terrifying villain. But he's also an actually interesting villain. Like, not only does his plan make sense, it's just, it lines up with what he wanted to do in the first place. He just, the line where he's like, to never feel a hot wind in your face. I don't remember the exact line. I delivered it horribly, but still, you get the idea. He was a really, really cool villain. And they gave him a couple more episodes down the line where he just got to be really, really cool. The one thing. Oh, wait, I just said the word cool like so many times to describe Mr. Freeze. I swear that wasn't intentional. The one thing that I didn't love, I don't love his suit in the original run of the animated series. The redesign was pretty good, but it's just kind of goofy looking and very simplistic. I don't love it, but still, an actually compelling villain who was pretty scary at times because the voice was just perfect, and a very cool villain. Again, not intended. Number 6 is Killer Croc. Okay, so Killer Croc is not as tragic or compelling as an antagonist as Mr. Freeze, but I just enjoyed him so much. He was just such a fun character because on the one hand, he actually did get some episodes where he kind of got to have a bit of a sadness to him, how like society has rejected him, and that's something that's synonymous with a lot of versions of Croc now. Um, but he also just got to be this big, bulky threat to Batman that could physically take him. Not really mentally take him, but you get the idea. His first episode was very, very good because he was this kind of compelling antagonist, but he was also just an overwhelming physical threat because like they added this thing about him being a wrestler that I was like, wait a minute, what? Because like, I mean, he's a man, he's human, he just has some sort of thing that makes him be all like slimy and pale and scaly. I don't know exactly what it is. It's not that great of an explanation for why he looks the way he does, but regardless, I think he looks very cool. The voice is really good, and then in the new Batman animated adventure season 4 of the show, he got an episode with Baby Doll where he both looked and sounded different, and he was still a cool character. Not as good, but still good. He got an episode where he was being transferred to a prison somewhere, and he escaped, and he and Batman were in the woods for this long time, and he like found this family of circus people, and he betrayed them, and he was just this. Oh man, it was a good episode. And of course, who can forget the classic story of how he almost got Batman? He threw a rock at him. It was a big rock. Oh, I love that episode. I love this show. It's awesome. Anyway, moving on. Number 5 is Catwoman. Catwoman is one of my favorite Batman characters ever. She is, without a doubt, in my top 2 Batman villains of all time, with a pretty obvious choice. But anyway, she is, and in this series, I don't know why, but HBO Max has the episodes in a different order than when they came out. So the first episode of the series that I saw was The Cat and the Claw. That rhymed. That featured Catwoman and Red Claw, who was not a very great villain, but she was fine, but whatever. And she had this, like, I always find Batman and Catwoman's dynamic interesting, but here it was just that it was interesting because, for one, the voice actor is great, perfectly cast, and she and Kevin Conroy had such chemistry. The banter between the two was really fun, and by the end of the episode, it was like, oh, they actually care for each other. Of course they do. It's Batman and Catwoman. How could they not? She got subsequent episodes throughout the series, and sometimes she was a villain, sometimes she betrayed Batman, because of course she did. And sometimes she was more on his side. And then when you got to season 4, she had a redesign that was a bit weird looking. It made her look much more triangular as a human being and less like a human being, but Who cares? It looked kind of cool. Whatever. And she had a couple cool episodes. One where she was set up by Nightwing. And as for the design in the original run of the series, I think it was very cool. It made her look like a person, and usually Selena Kyle does not have blonde hair, but they really took inspiration for Batman Returns with some of these designs, huh? Like Penguin looked like Danny DeVito. She has blonde hair like Michelle Pfeiffer did. I don't know, but I mean, it's a version of Catwoman. How could it not make the list unless she's played by Halle Berry, of course. I have not seen that film. I have no intention of doing so, but moving. Let's talk about the good Batman-related project. Not that that's really that Batman-related anyway. Her name isn't even Selena Kyle in the movie. It's Patience Phillips. What kind of a name is Patience Phillips? Selena Kyle is Catwoman, people. Whatever. Moving on. Number 4 is Poison Ivy. Now, going into this series, I did not expect to enjoy Poison Ivy more than Catwoman, but by just a smidgen, I did. This is a very, very cool version of Poison Ivy. Yeah, probably my favorite so far. Gotham somehow had 3 different actresses play Poison Ivy, but it was somehow the same character. She started out as like an 11-year-old girl, I think, and then she grew up so they could have the whole seduction angle, because you know that would be really, really horrible if they did that with an 11-year-old. And so they aged her up in order to do with Poison Ivy what they'd normally do with Poison Ivy. And then they aged her up again. And honestly, that middle actress, where she was aged up from being a child, I think was really good. Why am I talking about Gotham so much now? Anyway, version of Poison Ivy in this show was really, really awesome. Oh, man, she was such a cool villain. Because, for one, she was actually pretty scary. Because, well, she may not have been that huge of a physical threat for Batman. She had some pretty insane plans. Like that one time when she created, like, the perfect person for him to be married to. And then she set that whole thing up. And then they got married and he stopped being Batman. And then his fake wife and their entire army took over the entire world. That didn't actually... They took over, like, a boat or something and Batman stopped. It was a very cool episode. There was an episode where she, like, claimed to have been reformed, but she had actually been, like, creating her kids from, like, plants. It was a really messed up episode. She got some very cool episodes with Harley Quinn, like Harley and Ivy. The crossover with Superman the Animated Series with the character of Livewire, who is also a cool villain. Yeah. But yes, I think the voice actress that played her was very, very cool. I think she did a great job here. The design for both the regular and the redesign, I think it worked great. I think it worked very well. She was just a really, really great version of Poison Ivy. She was powerful. She was intimidating. Heck, in her first episode, she was engaged to Harvey Dent, and then she, like, tried to poison him. What's the deal? I don't know. So it was a very, really cool version of Poison Ivy. Moving on. Number 3 is Harley Quinn. And Harley Quinn was created for this animated series, and they liked her so much that now they've used her in innumerable comic storylines, in movies, in other TV shows. They gave her own TV show that I really have to see. It looks very good. She's been in like 3 different movies so far that have been released theatrically, even more than that in other like animated stuff, I think. I don't know. Still waiting on that Harley and Joker movie. Give Margot Robbie a great movie to be in where she doesn't have to talk with a shark. Give her a movie with the Joker, man. What are you doing? Anyway, not Jared Leto. Never Jared Leto. Anyway, so with Harley Quinn in this series, it's just the classic version of Harley Quinn because it's the original version of Harley Quinn. She was actually, not only was she really, really fun and funny and played off the Joker very, very well, she was also kind of a tragic character because, like, the relationship between the two of them is so messed up and so, like, wrong in so many ways, so distorted, that it was very compelling to see her, like, abandoning the Joker and striking out on her own or with Poison Ivy. But anyway, like, the episodes where they showed how she got hooked on the Joker, like, I'm pretty sure it was the last episode of the series, Mad Love. That was a darn good episode, and it just showed you how kind of messed up she was just as a person, but also how just seductive the Joker's charms were, how easily someone could be duped by someone like him, especially a person who's not of the strongest mind, not like intelligence, but just willpower. And Harley Quinn she was such an interesting character. I think the voice actress, Arlene Sorkin, I believe, did a phenomenal job in the role. She killed it. And, like, they gave her a lot of stuff to do. For an original character that had never been featured in any comic books before, like, it was pretty risky to just have her in there, just doing her thing, giving her own episodes. But, I mean, the character was ridiculously popular, and for good reason. She's easily one of my favorite villains in this entire series. She was just great. But number 2 is, well, conveniently, how did I not think of this? Two-Face. Man, this is an awesome character. Oh, geez. So, this is by far my favorite version of Two-Face ever. Like, I recently rewatched all the Batman movies that for ranking video that I'm going to be doing at some point when the new movie comes out, probably next week, hopefully. Anyway, so Two-Face was, well, not actually, before he was Two-Face, he was set up, just voice crack there, he was established in this series as Harvey Dent before he ever became Two-Face. Like, there were multiple episodes where he was just there, like, in the background, hanging out with Bruce Wayne, and it was so cool because he was like, well, it was cool, but at the same time, it was like, no, he's gonna become a villain. I don't know what that was, but, like, I talked about the episode where he was engaged to Poison Ivy, and it was just and then you get to the episode entitled Two-Face, a 2-part episode, the duality. Good job, Batman, the animated series. You did it. Anyway, so that episode, I don't know what my favorite episode of this series is, but this is, like, a great origin story for Two-Face because you have, like, before he even becomes Two-Face, before he has anything to do with acid or anything, like, he still has the duality to him because he's Harvey Dent, but he has this really dark, angry side that he appropriately labels Big Bad Harv, which is a bit goofy, but you know what? It was scary because the voice actor did a great job at playing both Harvey Dent, this nice, charming district attorney dude who had a dark side, and as well as the completely insane Two-Face, and doing the, like, hey, I'm Two-Face. Flippin' coins. He sounded much better than what I just did. And he got multiple episodes in this series to just be an awesome villain with so much complexity to him. Like, there was an episode where Harvey Dent was getting, like, surgery to remove the Two-Face part of him, and someone tried to kill him. And the whole episode is just a mystery about who was trying to kill him. And it turns out, who was it? It was Two-Face! It was his alternate personality that was trying to kill him. That is awesome! That's just great storytelling right there. He gets the episode where he does the giant penny thing with Batman. That was really cool. And he's not only does he have such a compelling origin story where you just see how crazy he becomes, not just due to the influence of the acid, which is a lot, but because he was already just a corrupted mind. Not because he was a bad dude, but because he had a bad side. And it's like what I will talk about very soon says, usually it takes one bad day for a person to go into, I don't know what exactly the quote is, but you know what I'm saying. The one bad day rule thing. Yeah. Not only was he a very compelling villain, but he was a threatening, frightening villain, and he was just such a match for Batman intellectually as well as kind of physically. He got an episode in the season 4 where it was like there's this vigilante called the Judge, who we never see the actual face of, that wants to like take out all the criminals and like kill them. That's a very cool villain, and the whole episode is like, who is this guy? And he tries to kill Two-Face, and then it turns out it's just a different personality from Harvey Dent. He created the Judge, and the Judge was so disattached from Harvey Dent that he didn't even know that they were the same person. That is good storytelling. Every single episode that they did with Two-Face, I absolutely loved. Almost got him. He was in that one. That just adds to his credibility here. Just great villain. And he looks awesome. Come on. Like, Funko Pop. Right there. I think you could... Two-Face. I think you can see it. He's got the coin and everything. Yeah. But, yes. An excellent villain. But come on. It's not even close here. Number 1 has got to be the Joker. Oh, man. This is by far, like, before I watched this series, Joaquin Phoenix was my favorite Joker, but come on. Mark Hamill literally becomes the Joker. Not only does he give probably one of the best voice performances I've ever heard in my entire life, he also, like, if you watch the behind the scenes footage, he's doing the crazy gestures, he's doing the ridiculous faces with the smiles and the laughs, all of it. He embodies the Joker, and this version of the Joker, he's like actually like a really threatening villain. To Batman, certainly, because he's just this maniacal person who is so ludicrous, and he loves it so much, but he's threatening to every single person he encounters. Even Harley Quinn, his own hench person, whatever. And, like, again, going back to Harley Quinn, there are some episodes in here where their relationship is truly terrifying, and you can just see how the Joker gets into people's heads, manipulates them, and makes them think things that just aren't with what they would usually think. That is the power of this person's insanity. That is how crazy the Joker truly is, and he was freaky, he was terrifying, but also, he got down, in my opinion, the main essential aspect of the Joker. He was hilarious. He was absolutely hysterical in this show. He was so funny. Oh, man. And, like, every single one-liner, every single joke that he made was really funny in a really sick and twisted way. Oh, man. And there's some just iconic lines, iconic episodes. Joker's Millions. The fish one. The one where he's presumed dead but isn't actually dead. Because, of course, he's not actually dead. The first episode that he's in, I'm pretty sure, where he tricks this dude who rear-ended him into doing this one favor that the dude like tries to run away from it for years. He changes his name, he moves his family, and the Joker still finds him because the Joker is a mastermind of insanity. And I mean, come on, like Mark Hamill kills the performance here. He kills a lot of other people too, but he also kills the performance. So without question, without a doubt, the Joker is absolutely my #1 villain of Batman, the animated series. So, let the good times roll. That was not an accurate Joker laugh, but that was... I'll work on it. Whatever. So, that's my list. What is yours? What do you think about Batman the Animated Series? Thank you for watching, and as always, keep calm and watch on. Batman movie.